science fiction and fantasy enthusiasts, and welcome to our podcast. With Ryan Sean O'Reilly, David Wilkinson, and Richard Mell. You're listening to No Deodorant in Outer Space. Now, let's get started.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to the second half of our podcast. Welcome back to our podcast, No Deodorant in Outer Space. My name is Ryan Sean O'Reilly. Joining me on this episode is Richard Mell, cackling in the background.
Hello.
And also slightly distracted is David Wilkinson.
Who?
That's you.
Yep.
So this is the second half of our episode on Invasion of the Body Snatchers. We're going to cover the two primary movie versions of this. The first is Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that was directed by Don Siegel and starred Kevin McCarthy, which came out in 1956. A later remake, also titled Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which came out in 1978, was directed by Philip Kaufman and starred Donald Sutherland. And if we have time at the end, I think we might get into some of the other movie versions of this that came out subsequent to those. But our focus will be on the two original versions. So I don't know if anyone has any general updates since our last episode.
Wilk, what did you think about the Game of Thrones episode that came out Sunday? I was able to see it last night.
I loved it, man. I loved
really?
it. I loved it. Yeah, it's kind of nice
I
not
didn't
knowing
think
what's
it
going to
went
happen
anywhere.
Well,
you know what's going to happen now.
Maybe you're just wrong. I don't know. I mean, maybe you're cognitively disabled. Where did you want? Where did it go? That
I guess so.
I mean, a lot of stuff happened. Where did you want? They didn't go anywhere. I mean, they.
Spoiler alert.
An episode.
Dorn? Who cares about Dorn?
Reverse spoiler alert.
Well, I think everyone that's invested in the books and the show care about Dorn. It's a big part of the story.
Okay.
In fact, I mean,
Rick, you know that David P. Wilkinson has been a big supporter of Dorn since the beginning. How could you even question his loyalty?
Oh, I didn't know he had Dornish blood. Maybe he does.
Don't you have like a Dornish tattoo on your lower back?
Daenerys, her family, the sister, they got her head smashed against the wall, was Dornish. That was married to her brother. Jon Snow, probably related to Daenerys. It's a whole thing. I mean, Dorne and the Lannisters is really what spurned the whole rebellion. Been bad blood there ever. Yeah, I mean, Dorne's played a central part in every aspect of the story from the very beginning.
Fascinating.
Even before the beginning.
Any other things going on with you guys besides just watching Game of Thrones on TV?
So it looks like Bernie Sanders won 2 states tonight. So I don't think he's out of the race, but Trump has locked up the nomination. Which is good.
I'm voting for Trump.
Are you? Why?
Well, I mean, I am a Bernie supporter.
Okay.
And that's basically to oust the establishment. And it looks like the game is rigged. And,
the game is rigged?
It will be Hillary.
How's it rigged? But the front runners lose an election. It's definitely rigged.
Well, I mean,
it's like is it like either we win?
Sanders is growing in popularity as time goes on.
Let's get back to chemtrail.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sanders is growing in popularity.
Yeah, well, he's in his early 70s. He's due.
Declining.
Where do each of the candidates stand on
popularity?
Chemtrails? That's what I want to know.
Well, hopefully not have a strong stance. Otherwise, they're going to look like Prince. Dead in an elevator. Thank you, Illuminati.
So, what we're actually going to be talking about in this episode, besides chemtrails, the political election, and Game of Thrones, is Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956, directed by Don Siegel. Rick, why don't you enlighten us a little bit about Mr. Siegel?
Siegel, he got into the movie business working in the Warner Brothers library. He did such a great job. He was so super efficient at being a librarian that he got a job as a montage director.
Yeah.
And, I guess according to the source, he directed 1,000 montages, which is unbelievable. I didn't know there were so many montages by that time.
One of which was Casablanca.
Oh, my God, yeah. And he did such a good job with montages that he graduated to directing, and he pretty much took everything that came his way. A few movies he directed was Flaming Star with Elvis, Hell is for Heroes with Steve McQueen, did 5 films with Clint Eastwood, including Dirty Harry. Siegel had a lot of influence on Clint Eastwood, and it might have been one of the reasons why Clint Eastwood went on to become a director himself. Did 2 Twilight Zone shows.
Twilight Zone. Yeah, that keeps coming up on the podcast. A lot of these guys.
He had a few. Big in that. He had a few cameos, including the one in the 78 version of the Body Snatchers. I think he was also in the, he was in Plain Misty for me too. And what else? He went to Jesus College in Cambridge, although he does think himself as an atheist. Well, what else? I see Wilkes got something in here that he claims that he doesn't like directing. I think that's pretty evident.
Oh no, I found that it was on YouTube. I think I saw an old interview that he did, or was, I can't remember if it was an audio interview or not. But they were asking him about directing, and he was just saying that directing was kind of boring because of I don't know, the downtime. Or one of his comments was people were like, "Oh, you were just in England directing. How was London?" And he was like, "Well, someone comes and picks me up, and it's dark out, and then I'm on set." And then it's dark out again, and then I'm brought home.
Oh, Jesus.
And I guess his point was he goes all these places to make movies and stuff, but he doesn't get a chance to see them because directing is so involved and stuff. It takes over your life.
Sounds boring.
It's kind of interesting that he made that comment that he didn't really like directing, even though he's had a pretty successful career about it. I also saw an interview Clint Eastwood talked about Don Siegel directing John Wayne, and I think John Wayne's last movie, The Shootist, maybe. And there was this scene where John Wayne was going around and he comes up behind these bad guys, and Don Siegel was like, just shoot those guys. You got the jump on them. And John Wayne was like, well, I'm not going to shoot these bad guys in the back. And Don Siegel was like, well, just, because he wanted to just move on, just take care of these guys and move on to the next scene. And John Wayne refused to shoot people in the back. And I guess Don Siegel had already worked with Clint Eastwood at that time. He said, well, Clint Eastwood would just shot them in the back. John Wayne was like, I don't care what Clint Eastwood would do. I'm not doing
that. Was like his last movie too, John Wayne.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So Clint Eastwood was laughing about that when Don Siegel told him about it. So that's what I saw about him. A little anecdote there. I don't know if
that's a good one.
Anything to add? Oh, I saw also in Wikipedia they mentioned that he directed a movie, Riot in Cell Block 11, and one of the interesting things there was that it was shot at Folsom Prison, and he actually used the prisoners in some of the roles, and then that impressed the dialogue coach Sam Peckinpah.
That probably also inspired prisons to enslave their prisoners from there on out. Free labor,
Or maybe people just wanted to be in a movie.
Maybe they were bored. They didn't want to be in their cells.
Sounds like a fascist.
Yeah. Wilk, anything you want to add about that?
He's made some of my favorite movies. He's Twilight Zone. I particularly like Dirty Harry, one of my all-time favorites. And
it's probably worth noting that he worked on these are big Clint Eastwood movies, right? And they were well received by the critics.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dirty Harry was well received more retroactively than at the time. But it's considered a classic now. And I don't know. I mean, like these westerns that Clint Eastwood made, I wonder how well received they were back then. I think if you live long enough, people like you, right? But and then Escape from Alcatraz. Just
let's hope so.
Just one of those, yeah.
I'm not going to say who that should apply to.
Well, I don't know. Probably the guy that's all by himself right now, and you. So,
shot across the bow.
There we go. Across the bow. It's a popularity contest. Yeah. So the Escape from Alcatraz was a great movie too that he made, and the westerns and all that. Yeah, he's got a certain style, and I look at those movies that I have seen of his before this, and he doesn't really cheat you on ending. He'll do a brutal ending, he'll do a hard ending. He doesn't necessarily play into the typical Hollywood stereotypes of walking off into the sunset unless you have a bullet in your gut, you just your badge in the lake. And I think that kind of plays into this movie here too, because it was a noted departure from the book. And it ended, and I think all the movies kind of had a more dark ending than the actual source material.
Well, we can get into that in a minute, but wasn't it that Clint Eastwood saw Don Siegel's version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers and then asked him to make a movie with him? He was so impressed. Or am I thinking of...
Are you just thinking of this randomly? I feel like you know this or you don't. I mean...
Am I confusing this with the last thing we just covered?
I don't know. I don't know what goes inside your mind.
All right, scrap that.
Just say it, and then when this recording is done, go back and then do some fact checking, and then you'll have to edit accordingly.
Nah, just skip it. I can't remember. I thought that maybe Clint Eastwood saw this movie and was impressed with it, and then brought Don Siegel on to the movie that he was making.
I feel like you should either know that or not know that. Why is that why is there ambiguity? What are you confusing that with?
Probably because I was researching this a week ago, and then we were scheduled 5 times.
I feel like if you're researching this, I mean, you know that though. I mean, that's not like I can't remember what color his eyes are or what year it came out. That's a pretty specific fact pattern.
I know. Maybe I was thinking about the movie about my life.
Yeah.
He was involved with 35 movies, so there was a lot there.
You got to assume the director...
You could be thinking about any one of them.
If you're directing a movie, how many women do you think you bang on each movie set per average? At least one, if not...
I'd say 1.5.
I'd say, I'd say probably 3, because you can play one against the other, and then you just had the random, the slut on the set. There's always a slut on the set, right?
You got to play them against each other, right?
Right. So
if you've got 3, then there's kind of like a love quadrangle there.
You got Betty, Veronica, and then Monica Lewinsky. I mean, so that's 3.
Or as we'd like to say in this podcast, David Wilkinson.
Yeah. So you get 3 women on each movie set you're banging. That's 35 movies. That's 105 women he's probably had sex with over the course of his career, right?
That seems speculative.
Well, what do you think? Over under 100 for this guy?
I would say under.
I don't know, man.
I mean, he went to Christian College in Cambridge, England, man.
Yeah, which means he's raring to go. It's not like he didn't dedicate his life to God. He made movies, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, not for Christ's sake. So, I don't know. You're in Hollywood. You're a big director. Plus, there's casting. I mean, easily, come on. Okay, who's in the under 100 club of famous directors? Spielberg probably is. That guy got no pussy, I'm sure. And he married very poorly. And he started adopting kids like an asshole. So, now...
I like how you look at adopting kids as a fault.
I do.
I think maybe you're the fault.
Well, I mean, there should be a quota. I mean, once you start adopting 2 or 3 kids on top of your regular kids, you're just creating problems. I mean, it's all about you at that point, not about the kids.
Yeah, right.
So
animosity amongst the children.
Well, we talked about this before. What about people who have a lot of means, like these directors you're talking about?
Yeah, but money doesn't buy everything, dude. I mean, you need time to spend with the kids.
Doesn't it, Dave? Doesn't it?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
It's like basic.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
So, all right, then let's move on to the movie if we've got nothing else to say about Mr. Siegel. Rick, why don't you give us a general comparison of this 1956 movie? I heard you sighing there. Would you rather do it?
I want to get into who banged who and how many people.
I thought we covered that.
Well, Rick says under, I say over. What do you say?
I don't have an opinion about that.
Well, then we're tied.
Rick,
then it's stalemate. Okay.
It's just the way I like you guys.
Rick.
It's like the current Supreme Court, man. Anyway,
Rick, it just a general comparison of this movie compared to the original source material of the book.
Well, one's a movie, one's a book.
I feel like this version of the movie followed the book fairly closely.
Right. I can't remember the ending of the movie. I saw it like 3 weeks ago. But let's see.
I
can't really think of anything that was different.
Let me help you out. The ending of this is way different.
I mean, the movie didn't get any of the metafiction.
Okay, yeah, the movie didn't get any of the metafiction that you brought up in the book, but the ending is one of the major differences. And actually, it brings up a topic I think that Wilk was getting at, is there was an originally intended ending that Siegel and I think one of his partners wanted to do, and the studio forced him to change the ending. So the ending of the book, as we talked about, is the aliens kind of give up because, gosh darn it, humans just fight too hard, and they don't want to give up. But Don Siegel's ending has an iconic scene, his original way he shot it, which is Kevin McCarthy running through traffic, kind of crazed. I think the 3 other main characters, there was the couple, the writer and his wife, and then Betty Driscoll, his love interest. They all, I think, end up pod people, which is not what happens in the book. And Kevin McCarthy ends up escaping into the traffic and trying to warn everyone. He's screaming that they're already here, they're already among us, and he's just like running through traffic, screaming at people's cars. That was the original ending, which is original ending that was intended by the director, which is pretty dark, even darker than the way it ends, because the studio didn't like that. They thought it was too dark, and they forced them to shoot a frame story, which Siegel reluctantly agreed to just to save the movie. And so they added narration in the beginning and the end, where you have the main character, the doctor, he's in like the psych ward talking about his experience with the pod people, and the people at the hospital are kind of, yeah, sure, whatever, the pod people are going to get us, and they don't really believe him. And when they flash forward at the end, after the scene where he's in traffic screaming at the pod people, we assume he's been brought into the hospital. Someone else comes into the hospital and talks about a truck having crashed with all these pods in it. And then I think someone at the hospital says, call the FBI. So we're led to believe that things are going to change, things are going to get better. And then an action's going to be taken to bring things back to the status quo. That's different than how Siegel originally wanted it to go, which is just Kevin McCarthy screaming, oh my God, they're already here, and people just kind of staring at him like he's crazy. That's one of the major differences. And I think that scene, that picture of him running through traffic, is probably one of the more popular still frames from this movie. It's probably very symbolic. other than that, it's pretty close to the original. And how did you guys feel about it? I know, Rick, sometimes you don't like the older movies. And this is certainly, this was an older one. So how was your take of this one? Just this movie as compared to the book?
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't really find this one particularly entertaining. I kind of dozed off during the show, and I don't know. It just wasn't very exciting.
You just generally didn't like it. Well, what about you, Will?
I liked it.
You did like it?
Yeah, it was all right.
What did you like about it? Did you like because you felt it stayed close to the source material? Or
I could not give a flying fuck about the source material. No, I just thought it was a good representation of science fiction in the 50s. I like the way it was shot. I like the story. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like watching Twilight Zone, which, this guy has made episodes of that too. It was just it was more or less an extended episode of the Twilight Zone, which I love. So if you like the Twilight Zone, I think you'd like this movie.
Yeah, I think that's a very good comparison. It does have that kind of a feel.
I mean, it could almost be done on a stage, really, too, which is like a lot of Twilight Zone stuff. It's not depending on special effects.
Yeah. I thought the special effects were pretty decent. The pods and stuff and everything. I thought they changed a few things with the writer. They didn't have the pod. And in the book, the first pod they find, I think, or one of the first ones is the writer. He finds it and he has it in his pool table in his basement. And remember in the book, they bring the doctor over to see this pod and it's a person, and it's like a partially completed person and it's really freaky. And then the doctor comes to the conclusion like, well, me and my girl here, we're going to leave. And, Jack, why don't you go to sleep and have your wife stay up and watch this like half-formed human. And if anything bad happens, have her come and wake you. We're going to go back into the city, which I thought was kind of crazy. That is kind of a plot hole that they would do that. And I think they didn't.
The same thing happened in the book, man.
That's what happened in the book. I'm saying in the movie, they don't do that. I don't think. I think in the movie, it's not in a creepy basement and they're just all there watching it happen. I think they run out.
Do you know why he did it that way, or was he just being a chauvinist pig? Yeah.
No, I think he was just kind of contrived. It didn't feel like it was real natural to the plot.
Well, I mean, he's being a scientist. He's using his theory and he's testing his theory out.
Well, I understand that, but for him to like leave the house and just be like, well, call me if anything happens.
Well, he didn't want any disturbances in the house. He wanted a complete control. So there you go. He's being a scientist.
I didn't quite get that from it, but
he didn't want any disturbances in the house.
What?
He felt if there was any activity in the house, it would hinder the growth of the pod or the pod.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. But I don't think they knew that at that point, did they?
Oh, but it was his theory.
Yeah, it was his theory. I saw that this film got picked by the National Film Registry to be in the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. And that was noted in Wikipedia.
Why is it culturally significant?
Well, why do you think it is or isn't?
I'm asking you. I guess you don't have an opinion on that. I have an opinian on that, but
I've already said it. I thought you were questioning why it should be. So
why should it have social significance?
Well, probably because
that's my question.
Well, it's inspired quite a lot of other films to be made, and it's kind of had a lasting impression on the American conscience and psyche.
And I think to tack onto that, I think the term pod people, which was noted in that article, that NPR article we talked about in the last episode that Wilk found, is that a whole expression like pod people kind of came out of this.
Oh my God!
Calling people pod people is like kind of like people, emotionless people. That's how much of an impact it had in society. It became part of the vernacular. And
I guess it's inspired a debate since it came out. Even when this movie itself. Some people thought it was about McCarthyism. Others thought it was about communism. And again, Don Siegel, he makes great action flicks that really aren't about a whole lot of anything. So, I mean, I don't know. And again, other movies that are in the Library of Congress are like Groundhog's Day. Sometimes these movies are placed in the library after a long period of time and they resonate and they stay popular. I mean, I think Ghostbusters made it in too. So, yeah. I mean, the fact that we're talking about it right now in 2016 kind of indicates it probably had a lasting effect on American culture, and they're still making remakes of this movie because no one's read the book. People know about Bob. I bet you most people when they hear Invasions of the Body Snatchers, they don't think of a book; they think of the movies, and that's really the lasting impact.
Yeah, and like you said, Wilk, Don Siegel, I think he did think that there was some, I guess, unavoidable comparisons to this story to McCarthyism, but he said he never had an intention to have any political, I think, messages in there, and he just wanted to show. I think he wanted to be more about individualism and conformity. He wanted to do more of a message about conformity than anything political.
Well, and most of his movies featured very strong individuals, mostly male, mostly with a gun in their hand. Violent males making their way through the world on the side of good was kind of a theme throughout a lot of his more popular movies. So
yeah, and I know he didn't want to come off preachy, but Rick, I think this is one of the reasons. This movie is probably one of the reasons why people attach political overtures to this. When you watch this movie, did you feel that this movie had more of a political message than the book?
No, not necessarily. I'm just kind of disenchanted by 50s movies. I think they're all kind of like propaganda in a way, just because everyone sort of talks the same, and there is no individualism in these movies. It's like language in these movies, it just seems like it's all stifled, and people had a way of talking where it was just extremely formal. No one was really relaxing back then. There was a lot of paranoia, it seemed. It's just kind of stiff for me, Did you feel that the book was like that too? Not fluid, not natural, not human enough.
Did you feel like the dialogue in the book was like that? I felt that the dialogue in the book was kind of stilted.
I don't know. It's hard to get that tone out of the book. I didn't feel that way while reading the book.
Wilk, anything memorable stand out to you on this version of the
I really liked it for all the reasons Rick just said. I like the 50s style. I like the stiffness. It's just the style of the era. It's more formal. It's like when people, like airplanes. People used to get in airplanes wearing their best clothes, like they're going to the church. It was it was a new medium, so they weren't sure how to deal with it yet. Mainstream films, television, that sort of thing. And at this point, films are kind of mimicking television and vice versa. So, a lot of the movies that came out are in this sort of style. You can kind of spot a 50s film, a 70s film, a 60s film. They have a certain look, style, feel, and aesthetic to them. So, and again, I'm just reading here. This is a fairly highly regarded movie. It's been placed on AFI's top 100 list.
Yeah, I've seen that Wikipedia. It's in a lot of lists.
Yeah, it's a top 10 science fiction movie of all time by the American Film Institute, number 9 on that list. So, no, I had never seen it before. I'm more familiar with the 1978 one, which I love and loved. But yeah, I thought it was pretty great. And I think if you like, classic sci-fi films, which if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are, or you're related to one of us, you should check it out. It's good.
I take it you guys don't really dig Snakes on a Plane then?
No, I like that too.
You like that too?
Yeah. I don't know where you're going. I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think one is the other.
What's the comparison with that?
They don't like wear their best suits on that plane.
It's true, they don't. But I was making the point that like when airplanes first came out, people would treat them as a very formal thing. It was new to them. They treated it with more respect and reverence. And as time went by, you're on planes now in your jeans or wife beat or whatever. I'm saying.
Well, people would like suit up to watch television back. Don't you think that's just kind of?
Would they? I don't know. Okay.
Yes.
Well, they didn't want to be embarrassed in front of the television.
I'm not sure there's any basis for
I think
for
that's
that.
Insane.
People would often be.
What will?
I don't know why they would wear a suit to watch TV in their own home, but no, I know the 50s mentality was very formal when you're in public. So,
what's so funny?
People they always wore their suits for everything they did back then.
Yeah,
fucking wear your suit to the toilet for crying out
loud.
loud.
The toilet's clogged. Get my tuxedo.
It's back to that 1950s leave it to beaver mentality. Wear your suit.
I just
they cut the lawn on their suit.
Like that.
Honey, I need to change my tampon. Get my cocktail dress.
All right. I think we've covered the movie sufficiently enough. Let's move on to the next iteration, the 1978 version, directed by Mr. Philip Kaufman, which starred Donald Sutherland. And to start us off on that, Rick, why don't you give us a little background on the director Philip Kaufman?
Philip Kaufman, interesting guy, I think. He ended up growing up in somewhere around Chicago, I believe. And he went to the University of Chicago for history. I think he got his degree there, and he ended up going to Harvard Law for about a year. And at that point, I believe I might get the sequence wrong on this, but he decided to go on a hiatus. He kind of got swept up by the counterculture in 1960, which is pretty early to get swept up in that, which is just kind of, it speaks to his foresight. It speaks to his intelligence, I believe.
He moved to San Francisco, right? I see that's what Wikipedia says, which is, I guess, telling because that's where he sets this movie ultimately.
Yeah. And when he got to San Francisco, he met a few writers and he worked for the post office. And, he had this formal education and he just kind of wanted to be grounded a little bit more, it seemed like. And then from there, he did like a world tour. He backpacked Europe. He visited Greece. Yeah. He went to Israel. He was in a kibbutz for like about a year or so. He taught English, taught a couple of subjects in his kibbutz. But a kibbutz is like a commune basically in Israel. And they
farm and stuff. Yeah.
It's pretty interesting there. I didn't really find a whole lot about that. But when he was in Europe, he was inspired to do film. And, he saw a lot of films laden with a lot
independent, like European films, right?
He saw a lot of art. And he came back to the States with a complete appetite for making films. And what did he do? I mean, he
got interested in jazz, was noted here in Wikipedia. That drew him back.
Yeah. I mean, jazz is just sort of like a prerequisite for his kind, I mean, everyone loves jazz there. But,
God.
Oh, for sure. I mean, every beatnik loves jazz. So, yeah, he's done a lot of cult classics. The Right Stuff, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, particularly, acclaimed.
Outlaw Jesse Wales, which was that with Clint Eastwood?
Yeah, that was an interesting one because Clint Eastwood started to get a little annoyed by Philip Kaufman's style and the way he was directing the movie, and Clint Eastwood was an instrumental part in kicking him off of the movie. And Eastwood volunteered to direct the rest of it. And I think he ran himself into such a quagmire that he had to bring Philip Kaufman back to help with like a screenplay and maybe just consult a little bit. But I thought that was kind of funny. Mm-hmm. What else?
He was involved.
He did The Wanderers.
He was involved with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah,
with the story.
I think he assisted with the story on that. Yeah. His quote about jazz is the following: "I could feel the cry of America, the sense of jazz. So I came back to Chicago in 1962 and set about trying to learn as much as I could, seeing every foreign movie I could." So somehow he ties jazz into learning films, which is pretty cool. Jazz is inspiring. What else? Yeah, I mean, he likes art films. There's like a clip on YouTube where he kind of picks out a dozen of these things, and I've never heard of one of them, but I want to start checking him out because I think he's pretty insightful and he's pretty damn intelligent.
Oh, is that where the clip where he was just picking out movies, just saying he was going to go watch them so he could get re-inspired to make another movie?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, he doesn't get any inspiration watching Hollywood film.
Yeah. All right. So that's Kaufman. Unless, Wilk, do you have anything to add about him?
Nope.
I thought some of these movies might be movies that you liked, Wilk.
What do you mean?
No? In like his repertoire, any of these like were movies that you were big on?
I mean,
for some reason.
Raiders of the Lost Ark was pretty good.
What about you, Ryan? What kind of touched on you? You ever see The Right Stuff?
Yeah, I think maybe years ago. Quills, I remember seeing. I liked that one. That was about the Marquis de Sade.
Actually, I think I hate most of his stuff. I'm looking at the list here.
Oh, really?
Mary and June, Rising Sun, just god-awful movies. I mean, The Right Stuff was okay, I guess.
What about The Unbearable Lightness of Being? What's that about? I don't know.
I just want to slap anyone in the face that says they like that movie. It's fucking terrible.
Oh, maybe I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
He also directed a current HBO movie that's on HBO right now about Ernest Hemingway, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, if that's it on the director, then let's move on to the 1978 movie. And Wilk, let me turn to you. I hadn't heard from you in a while. In your comparison of this version of the movie compared to the book, and maybe even a comparison to the earlier version. I know you said that you really like this one, so I'll throw it to you to give us a general comparison.
Well, I mean, this had nothing to do with the book whatsoever. I doubt the guy even read the book. He just updated the 1950s movie. It had to take place in a large urban environment, and he just piled on the terror and the hopelessness, and the ending is about as bleak and terrifying as they come. It's pure 70s cinema. It's a classic. Jeff Goldblum owns a bathhouse. I don't know where it's got nudity. It's great. Everything you want is, and by the way, just like every movie in the 70s, a miserable ending where everybody dies. That's how you know it was made in that decade. Ain't nobody living through this shit.
Well, and there is stuff. I mean, they have the similar characters. Like Jeff Goldblum, I think is supposed to be the writer. Or no, yeah,
He is a writer. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a struggling writer, and he owns a bathhouse with his girlfriend. And then there's also this like psychologist, like which is in the book, but the psychologist is actually played by Leonard Nimoy. And I think, Rick, were you telling me that this was an interesting role for Nimoy because he was trying to play against type?
Yeah, he was. And they gave him this opportunity. I thought he did a tremendous job. Too bad it didn't continue.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, he tried to break out of Spock, and they gave him this opportunity to do it, and I thought he performed very well.
Well, yeah, but his character...
it's just that it didn't carry on into anything else that I know of, but I don't know a whole lot about movies.
Well, no, Nimoy did a lot of stuff, but besides that, but the character here was a lot like Spock. I mean, no emotion, an alien. I mean, he was a pod person most of the movie. He was truly like a creature of logic with no emotion, which makes him almost exactly like Spock. I mean, I don't think it was type at all.
That character was not like the other characters, though. I mean, he was kind of like a hybrid pod person. Yeah. He did have like a conversational style and some kind of personability. He related, and
he was a little bit more flamboyant, really. I didn't really feel like he was totally detached. I know, I guess he was supposed to be a pod person the whole time, right, Wilk? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't know that I totally buy into that. Like Rick is saying,
technically he was a pod person, but he
acted different than the other
he was the marquee pod person that, he played the most important pod person in the book.
Yeah.
And this movie, I mean, it made being a pod person extremely,
fashionable?
Obvious. It's just obvious that, the husband in the beginning, once he became a pod person, he was just like a zombie, and he was like marching around. He threw his garbage out, which was basically his old cadaver. But
that reminds me
of the entire movie. That guy was just completely in outer space. I mean, the psychologist, he was personable. He could carry a conversation. He wasn't removed.
It's some of the differences in this one versus the other one. One, they changed the main character's name from Miles to Matthew. I guess we have to do that. But instead of being just a general practitioner doctor, he's a health inspector in the town, and somehow in his capacity as health inspector, he gets a sense of what's going on. He still has a love interest. But no, and then another thing that was interesting that I think, Rick, when we watched the movie together, was how they said it, like Wilk said, in an urban environment, and they had it, like Rick, you pointed out when we were watching this, it was way more orchestrated in this version, because like in the beginning you see these garbage trucks going around, and they're actually picking up the leftover gray material from the human body that is like the desiccated human body that gets sucked away by the pod body. Mm-hmm. And these garbage like trucks know to stop at the houses where the pods are and pick up these remains, and you get a glimpse of these garbage trucks like filled with this stuff. And that was a very good point. And this movie starts a lot quicker than the book and maybe the earlier movie. Like you kind of get into it, and the problems start developing like a lot faster. Mm-hmm. And it was great.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the movie for its ambience. It covered an entire city as opposed to a small town. You felt like you were in San Francisco while watching this movie. It was, it just exemplifies, Philip Kaufman's, talent and his knack for directing good movies.
One of the iconic scenes is a thing that was new to this iteration, which was that when a pod person sees a normal human being, when they somehow figure out it's a normal human being, they have this like sort of otherworldly scream, and they like point at the person like with this kind of crazy look in their eyes, and like alert all the nearby pod people to go after that person. And that is like kind of a new element that was very creepy and very effective, and it becomes very poignant at the end, the ending was great, like Wilk said, because you follow the main character, who's Matthew, who's like the health worker or the food inspector guy. At the end, you think, he's the protagonist, and then you get like a twist ending where you find out that he actually did become a pod person, and when he runs into someone else, and you think he's still trying to fight for the good fight, and he has that famous like picture of Donald Sutherland like pointing and that scream coming out.
I think part of the reason why it was so powerful, and I'll never forget that scene. I mean, I saw that movie when I was like 7 years old, and even before I saw this movie like a week and a half ago, that scene still stuck out in my head. And seeing it again, it was even more powerful because I got to know Donald Sutherland's character, and the impression that he gave that character was so likable. He was kind of lovable, and he was personable. He had a very nice sense of humor, and he had a personality, kind of like unlike the original movie. I liked his haircut. He didn't really comb his hair. He was just kind of lax, and he did a good job as health inspector, and he was funny. But I already said that. Anyway, that contrasts very well with the last scene where he just kind of goes all pod on his girlfriend, who kind of comes out of the woodwork and says, hey,
Yeah.
we got to get out of here. And then he like screams at her, which was horrifying,
Yeah, indicating that he has turned as well.
Mhm.
And the story kind of stays with him, so it's like a big surprise that he's flipped. Yeah. Wilk, any more comments from you about this one?
A general comment. I mean, I really never understood as a kid, as a teenager, as an adult, as a near middle-aged man, this movie, the aspect of it where, why do the people disintegrate? I don't get, I guess overall, I get the pods, but the whole concept would be better if the people would come from the pods and just murder the shit out of the people they were replacing. I don't get the magical disappearing act. The ashes thing. I mean, how do you fight that? That's my big problem. That's why I don't think the humans could ever win.
So that adds to the creepiness, because there's that whole, like, you can't sleep, you got to stay awake, and when you do sleep, then the pod is able to suck away your essence and duplicate you. And if you can reverse it, I guess, if it gets caught early on enough, but then if it's not, then it's too late and you are gone and replaced.
I don't know. Creepy is not a good word, though, because it's less creepy just to disintegrate rather than getting kind of obliterated by a pod person. You know what I mean?
But do you think it's creepy that you like have your life force sucked away in your sleep and you can't sleep?
Well, it's just more of like a cosmic reaction, and it's inexplicable. It beats having your body mutilated, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I just don't get the how that happens. So, like, I mean, it seems like a pretty invincible thing. Like the fact that the body just disintegrates. Why? It was never. I mean, that ever explained. Yeah, and so that's the part I don't get.
Well, I mean, that's why I like this movie, though. The horror element is there. There's more graphic detail. You know exactly how these people, the pod people, emerge from their pods. You see the whole process in this movie. In the previous movie, and even in the book, there was less description about all of that. There was less description about how the bodies were replaced. It kind of left it up to your imagination, which some people appreciate. I figure if you're doing a movie, it's more about the visuals, and you might as well use those resources.
No, I've seen movies too. I'm just saying, like, I could get.
You've seen movies?
Yeah, I just the disintegration part, it just didn't fit. I mean, if they would dissolve them, if they cover them with this kind of thing. I mean, like, I didn't see the catalyst to them disintegrating. That's all. They just
like, how does it work? You're saying, how does it work?
Yeah, no, I mean, they showed the body disintegrating, I think, at least a couple times. I get that. I just
don't get
why. Yeah, I was looking for the catalyst. I always have. Every time I watch a movie, like, did I forget that? No, they just don't explain it. That's the only flaw I see with the movie.
I see what you're saying. Like, why don't they just kill the person and then, like, they replicate them? Why is there that energy drain? I don't know. The science is the original work is not big on science. It's not a hard science work. It's weak, which allows for more creativity.
Wait, there is a science, and it was explained in the book, and it was described by the psychologist. I forget his name in the book.
Manny, wasn't it Manny Kaufman?
Manny, yeah. So at the end of the book, Manny describes that everyone has a natural frequency. And
the electric.
They emit, signals from their body based on the flows in their, electromagnetic activity, basically. And you get electromagnetic activity just by passing water through a tube, okay? So if you take, the cardiovascular system and all of its complexities, then that sort of serves as a template with the electromagnetic waves emitting from your body. So that's kind of like the science behind it. And I guess
that doesn't explain anything. I mean,
well, I think
it doesn't explain anything, but it does go above and beyond what you would normally expect out of a serialized novel like this.
But it doesn't really explain what I'm just saying. There's no touching. There's no catalyst between them disintegrating.
Well, but what Rick is saying, it's like electromagnetic waves. It's that kind of a thing. It's happening wirelessly.
But how would electromagnetic waves disintegrate a body like that?
I don't know.
Me either.
I mean, maybe there's just like a sucking.
Well, how does that was one of the criticisms of this book I saw somewhere online, that how do these space seed spores float through space on cosmic light or whatever they're saying. They said that some people felt that was a pretty weak explanation.
Well, yeah, because I'm just saying there's nothing.
That's not weak, though.
No, it is weak, but here's why. There's nothing. Okay, waves of frequency would make sense if they gave you a stroke or a heart attack. If they released some enzyme in your body that could actually kill you. There's a billion things in your body that, if combined with this or that, could kill you. They could cause an aneurysm when you drop dead. There's nothing in our body that would cause us to dissolve and disintegrate. It requires a foreign element to touch us. That's what I'm saying. You got pods here. Why not just spray a little seed on them? It affects the whole body, adds that foreign element, and they disintegrate. Just that little extra step would be noise.
That happens in one of the movies. I think it's one of the later movies where the pod people like cough on people and spray something on them.
Spores. There you go. There's one little thing. I just did one little. That's the only thing on this movie. Again, it's still a great movie. It just always kind of bothered me.
I think that the author, he doesn't have a heavy amount of science in here, and that lends to more creativity in the movies, and maybe the length and lifespan of this book and its longevity by being more loose.
Yeah,
it's like some more of a sandbox.
It could be a lot looser, though. It could be a lot looser.
The book's shit. It's just a shit book. It's got a good concept.
The explanation of how seeds get on the planet Earth, that's completely viable. Once a seed is airborne in space, it's in a vacuum. Nothing's going to affect it. It's preserved forever. So it's going to float forever. Until it gets into some kind of orbit around planets such as Earth. And it'll take forever, but it's fate to land on a planet that supports life. If there are enough in the universe, then it'll just happen.
Well, and it's got to get through the atmosphere and all that kind of. There's criticism.
Because it's light enough. I mean, it's not like going to go down in flames.
Well, yeah, it could get burned.
It's not heavy enough.
No, it'll get burned up by the atmosphere.
No, it won't get burned up because it's not heavy enough.
Well, it's
just going to fall right onto the surface of the planet.
What does weight having to do with it? I mean, basically,
it's mass. It's not weight.
Either way, I mean,
you will never be able to generate enough speed with that mass because of terminal velocity and the resistance it'll experience with the atmosphere. It'll be slowed down to its terminal velocity and it will never get fast enough to burn out. Okay. If it's a seed, you guys just don't understand, do you?
No, I understand everything. I'm just saying, or if it's extremely cold though, too, in space. I mean, what? I mean, plenty of seeds can't survive.
Even more for preservation.
Well, seeds can last through
cold vacuum.
Seeds can last through winters and stuff.
I know, but I'm just saying, there's all kinds of extremes up. Yeah, but I mean, what if we put an acorn in an extreme cold? I mean, what would happen? I don't know. I mean, I'm not buying that seeds can survive anything because they're seeds.
I think there's enough that this story works, and we don't have to go back and review the book again, but I just feel like there's enough to make I view the story as like a sandbox with some solid elements, and that it's been a great place for directors to go and play in and create their own little takes on it or big changes.
Sandboxes. That's engineering for you, though. Yeah. It's knowing the borders of the sandbox and being able to work creatively within those.
Knowing the formats of the show.
I agree. I mean, being an engineer means being able to follow rules, submit yourself to authority, and don't ever go outside the lines.
Same thing with the law.
Are you fucking kidding? The law is all about breaking the law. The law is about how can I not follow the rules. That's the essence of being a lawyer. No, but engineers, they're by the books. They like to follow.
Listen to these barbs. Look at these barbs coming out of Wilk.
If you think I'm getting pissed off by these comments, I'm not.
I hope you're not, because that would be against the rules.
Here we go. It's getting late, folks.
Against the rules.
Getting late. All right. Well, I think that's
I'm getting baited here.
That's enough about that movie.
You are getting baited. You are definitely getting baited.
I constantly get baited from you guys.
All right, so, I think it's worth noting that this movie has been remade at least twice more. We weren't going to cover these movies formally on the show, but it's worth noting that in 1993, a version came out called Body Snatchers, which was directed by Abel Ferrara, who was also known for directing Bad Lieutenant, among other movies, and starred Babrielle Anwar. And then another version came out in 2007 called The Invasion, which was directed by Oliver Hirschbiegel and James McTeigue, and starred Nicole Kidman. I did watch those movies, and I'll just add, my little quick take on those. The 93 one, I think Roger Ebert said that one, I think he said it was one of the best of all the versions, and it was very underrated. Wilkie might have something to add on to that as well, but I'll just say that version to me was a lot more horror focused. They changed the setting to a military base, and and they also changed like the protagonist. The protagonist is a female. She's got a younger sibling. Her dad is an EPA inspector, so he's like the scientist, but the focus is more on female. They're moving to this military base where her dad tests for these environmental contaminants, and that turns out to be the pod people. But I thought it was it was very decently done, and it was a lot scarier, I think, in some of the other versions. I really would recommend checking it out if you're interested in these movies.
Not me.
Stuart Gordon was involved with the writing of this, and we, of course, talked about him a little bit previously when we did the Reanimator movies, and he's the guy that's really he's made a couple of remakes of H.P. Lovecraft, which we touched on when we covered H.P. Lovecraft on the Call of Cthulhu episode. Will, did you want to add any comments about this version? I think you said something like this movie was abandoned, you were telling me?
Yeah, it got a very small theatrical release like for a week in like 5 theaters, and I don't know why, but yeah, it almost was straight to video. But it was pretty well received, and the one with the Nicole Kidman got a major release and was just absolutely panned. And yeah, I mean, again, this concept has been replicated, like the movie The Faculty is like this. I mean, there's a billion remakes of this movie, the concept. It's been done 1,000 times over, just a couple times formally.
And the Nicole Kidman one, that one was also set in the city on the East Coast, and to me, that one was really a thriller, kind of more.
We didn't watch it.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of more about like there's a virus and we have to get a cure. Nicole Kidman,
how did she do in it?
She's also in it with Daniel Craig. I mean, I feel like Nicole Kidman does a decent job. She's in a bunch of the stuff we've covered. She was in Stepford Wives. She's going to be in Golden Compass as well, which I also find kind of interesting. But it's about her, and she's got a kid, and her kid is kind of like the savior for mankind because he's immune to the virus. But it's just more of like
how does her performance stack up with Donald Sutherland?
I don't know that it does. This one is probably the least of all the movies. Okay.
And then what again made the 93 movie so good? Because Robert Ebert said it was, or, I mean, did you guys?
I didn't watch it.
You didn't watch it. I didn't watch it either. Ryan, you said you watched it. What made it so good?
Well, the stuff that I said. I just felt like it was more scary. The effects were good, and it also it just had a creepier tone. Just the who is a pod and who isn't, I think was a bigger kind of menace in that plot.
So you saw all 4 movies.
Yeah.
Rank them from 1 to 4, best to worst.
Well, I guess I'll put 78 as the top, and then maybe I would put the 93 after that, and then the 50s version, and the Invasion last. The Nicole Kidman one last.
All right.
But Wilk, you also pointed out an article that I'd like to mention on here that was on this website, litreactor.com, and it was an article by Christopher Schultz that came out not too long ago, May 29th, 2015, and this guy kind of goes into depth on all 4 movies and the book and does a comparison straight through. So if anyone's more interested in this topic, I would recommend going to that. I'll try to put a link on the website, but I thought this article was really good. This guy really broke it down in each iteration of this. So, I mean, if no one's got anything else to add, then
I wanted to add a general thing about the movies, not I don't want to get very specific about it. I just, like I said, I think this has been repeated in a lot of different genres, the concept, and again, it's not just this, it's been remade probably 15, 20 times under different names. Just, I mean, it's become a monster movie, the Pod People thing. Just
almost like
called that,
like Frankenstein or something like that.
Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, and again, even these renditions that you've described, and you've watched some of the descriptions. They're all topical. Like the Nicole Kidman one was about the environment. The 93 one had to do with the military. There's one kind of a mock one made about sexuality. I mean, it's a fairly well received concept.
I think that was the point of the other article, the NPR article that was by Maureen Corrigan, which I'll try to put a link on for that too. I think that was one of her points. It's almost become like a myth.
I mean, it's a monster movie, I think, at this point. And really, in the book itself, I think is very insignificant in how this is taken off in popular culture. But that's just me.
That happens, though. Sometimes books,
they're
just decent, and then the movies really take it to another level that the book may not have achieved on its own.
Right. And people like the concept. And, I mean, Stepford Wives, I'm saying, was a variation of this theme, too. So,
do you think that this book, it almost reminds me a little bit of, it almost reminds me of Philip K. Dick in the sense of it having a strong concept and being a little bit loose in other aspects and then being, good fodder for movies. I think, Philip K. Dick, he does, interesting twists and psychological stuff going on that Jack Finney doesn't have, I agree. He's more of a true writer, I think. Well, again, this wasn't Finney's best work by his own admission. I mean, it was a good concept, but the writing didn't really, I don't know. I would never read this book again. It wasn't that memorable. It was good, but the idea was good. The writing itself wasn't that great, I guess. That's but different show.
He had trouble with timing, he sped time up, when they left the small town in California, all of a sudden the small town just crumbled away, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. He didn't explain it. Just kind of negligent.
All right. Well, if anyone doesn't have anything else to add, then why don't we just go around and give our final comments, all right? Let's go to you, Rick. Do you have anything else to add? And otherwise, why don't you give your star ratings on the two movies?
Well, I think the movies and the book and a lot of movies and horror, I mean, they all play on a theme of fear of otherness. And this one in particular really underscores that theme. And I mean, like what we've been saying, it applies to whatever the current flavor of politics is. And sure, back in the 50s, it was all about McCarthyism. Today, it's all about, LBGTs or whatever. But, I don't appreciate the theme. You don't need to fear otherness. That's why I really don't appreciate, doing horror, doing stuff like this, because we should try to understand what we don't really know. And instead of just reacting with fear, we should be reacting with curiosity. And, with that, I'll just give the 58 movie 2 stars. I'll give the 78 movie 5 stars. And with that, I am finished.
Okay. Well, your star ratings for the two movies.
The 55 or 56 movie, I'd give 4 stars to. I'd give 5 stars to the 78 version.
Okay. Any parting comments, or we'll leave it there?
I think the 78 version is my favorite movie that we've watched in a long time. It's probably the best version out there. I think it really stands on its own. You could watch it and get a good taste for that decade, and you don't really need to read the book to enjoy the movie. And again, I'm not saying don't read the book, but this is one of the rare exceptions where I think the movies are way better than the book. Both movies we watch I like better than the book.
That's a good point. Let me give my final comments, and I'm just going to say the 56 version, I'm going to give 3 stars to. I enjoyed it. I like what Wilk said about it being sort of akin to the Twilight Zone or akin to this era of movies. Definitely worth checking out. I guess I'd say it's a strong 3 stars. Maybe I'll give it 3.5 stars. I'll go with. The Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1978 is it is better than the book. And I would say that one I'm going to give 4.5 stars to. I'm not going to quite give it 5.
Why not?
I don't know. I just don't. I really liked it, but I don't think I came away from it like my world was rocked or something like that. So I really liked it, and I definitely worth it. And like I think Will made a good point. It stands on its own, and I mean maybe this is like like we talked about like Starship Troopers. I like the movie better than the book. So yeah, I definitely would say that 4.5 stars. And I kind of ranked the movies previously with the other 2 movies, so that's my comments on all that. So if we have nothing else, I will invite people to join us next month when we cover The Lair of the White Worm, which came out in 1911, was written by Bram Stoker, who you may know from Dracula.
Oh.
There was also a film that came out called The Lair of the White Worm in 1988, directed by Ken Russell and starred Amanda Donohoe. Donohoe? Probably mispronounced that. So we'll invite everyone to join us next month for that when we reach back into get even older works. And come check us out on our website, nodeodorant.com. You can read our show notes there. We're also on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter. You can get the show on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also available on iTunes. We appreciate anyone going on there and giving us a star rating, preferably a 5-star rating. Or you can also find us on Stitcher or TuneIn Radio. And we're also now on Google Play for Android users. So we're available on most places you can find podcasts, and we encourage anyone to subscribe and to rate our podcast and see how we like being rated. Other than that, I will have us all say a heartfelt good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
For more information on the topics discussed in this episode, or to read our show notes and find us on social media, visit nodeodorant.com. For more information on Ryan Sean O'Reilly and his various works of fiction, visit ryanseanoreilly.com. For more information on David Wilkinson, visit drycracker.com. For more information on Richard Mell, check out his profile at goodreads.com. The theme music for this podcast was written by John Doyle from the band I Decline. You can visit him at i-decline.com. Voiceover for this podcast was provided by me, Margaret O'Reilly. Well, that concludes our episode. We hope you've learned a lot. Again, thanks for listening to our show. And always, always remember, there is no deodorant in outer space.
No.
I'm gonna hit record. I have.
Fucking go.
Okay. I'm recording.
Do you need to call someone or something? Or
Probably, but not to the middle of the podcast, I'm sure. So,
excellent.
anyway, where did you want it to go? I mean, like,
Where did you want it to go, Rick? Why are you holding back on this all the time like this?
Well,
I just wanted to see Jon Snow turn into a wolf.
You did. You saw
Well,
the wolf
maybe
in
you'll
there.
get what you
It's
wanted, but I mean, come on, be patient like everyone else.
He doesn't turn into a wolf.
Why do you
He
gotta,
can
take it to another level like that?
He can work his spirit into the animal.
Warging. What about the warging?
Disappointed.
What about the warging?
Did you want them to do the whole season in one episode? You know, it's there's 10 episodes. They're not. I mean,
And where the hell is Rickon?
who?
Rickon, Bran's brother.
He's become a tree up north.
Haven't we all, Dave? Haven't we all?
Inspired prisons to enslave their prisoners.
Delicious.
From there on out.
Well, we can get into that in a minute, but I just lost my train of thought. The hell was I going to say? I don't know. We can move on. Sorry, guys. I totally lost my train of thought. I was going to piggyback into something you just said, Will.
Didn't watch it.
No, I'm telling you about it. And so...
But why? Why do we care?
Because that's the topic we're covering.
We're not covering that movie.
We agreed not to cover that movie.
Why are you telling me to give me the plot synopsis of the movie?
It's out there if people want to check it out. I know
Talk
it's
about your instead. I'd rather hear about your describe your I don't know. I mean, fine. Let's hear about the Nicole Kidman movie we didn't watch. Does that
Ryan.
Is there hair on it? Is it hard? Is it soft? Oh my God. No, I said you should talk about your instead. I was just trying to drive you crazy. Yeah, that's nothing personal. Just Rick, I'm just fucking with you. There's nothing but I'm not. How am I not fucking with you? I guess. No, I was completely. Yeah, I was just baiting you, dude. Relax.